Buongiorno e bentrovati per un nuovo webinar, un nuovo corso live all'interno di Radical HR Club, alla scoperta di tutte le trasformazioni che in quanto HR dobbiamo fare all'interno delle nostre aziende oggi e nei prossimi mesi, alla ricerca di quel new normal che abbiamo ben capito che non sarà un new normal, ma è la costruzione di tanti new ways of working, tanti nuovi modi di lavorare in un'idea di futuro del lavoro sempre più plurale e in un'idea di futuro del lavoro sempre più futuro e in cambiamento sostanzialmente ogni giorno. È il motivo per cui Radical HR Club è nato, è il motivo per cui all'interno della nostra community incontriamo e invitiamo tantissimi esperti con diverse idee, con diversi suggerimenti, con soprattutto strategie e pratiche concrete da condividere affinché poi all'interno delle nostre aziende le possiamo attuare. La trasformazione delle aziende dipende da HR e HR per prima come funzione, come ruolo. Come ognuno di noi, insomma, come persona, dobbiamo trasformarci, dobbiamo essere i primi artefici di questo cambiamento. Per parlare di tutto questo e per parlare poi di che cosa c'è oltre l'agilità, di che cosa c'è oltre la resilienza, abbiamo invitato un esperto, fondatore del Future for Work Institute di Barcellona, grande esperienza negli anni come direttore HR di diverse aziende e ora impegnato in questa ricerca costante dei nuovi trend del futuro del lavoro e ricerca costante di soluzioni per costruire delle aziende che funzionino meglio. Si chiama Santi Garcia, ho il piacere di averlo con noi oggi, so I switch to English. Santi, first of all, thank you very much for being with us in Radical HR Club today. And the first question is, how are you?
Very well. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Alessandro, for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be with you today.
I was joking before the beginning of this webinar with Santi, if speaking Spanish or English. Of course, the webinar will be in English. Santi, you have a great experience in Spain and not only in Spain, first as an HR director and then with the Future for Work Institute. We will speak of resilience, we will speak of agility, we will speak of new organizations. But before leaving to you the stage, a first question, what are you seeing, I mean, speaking of transformation of companies right now in Spain and from your observatory, what are the main trends that are, I mean, affecting the changes of the companies you are working with?
Well, many of the changes we are observing are directly related to the COVID crisis. The COVID crisis somehow has changed many things, but it also has accelerated several trends we had already detected in the world of work and in the world of managing people in organizations. For instance, automations, for instance, remote work, for instance, the digital transformation of organizations. And we think that all those changes represent a huge opportunity for HR professionals because somehow all those changes have put HR professionals in the center of the stage, under the lights. And this is a great opportunity for you, for HR professionals, to vindicate your role as business partners, as strategic partners of your companies.
That's very important, and that's the big challenge. I mean, if we want to change our companies, first of all, we must have the right skills and the right mindset to drive this change. If we want to build people-centered companies, we need HR at the core of the transformation. That's very, very important. Santi, thank you very much for being here. I mean, the title of your presentation is Beyond Agility, the Search for organizational resilience. I'm very curious. I look forward to hearing to you and your presentation. So I leave the stage to you. If you need me, if you need us, just, ask. Me and the team are here to support you. And to you, if you have questions, just put the questions inside the platform, and at the end of the presentation I will discuss all the topics you suggest with Santi. So thank you again, and I leave to you the stage, Santi.
So again, thank you very much for the invitation, Alessandro. It's a real pleasure for me to be with you today. The topic I'm going to talk about today is organizational resilience. I'm going to jump over this slide. It's just a presentation of me with my contact details. You will have it in the presentations. Let's review the agenda. I'm going to divide my presentation in four main blocks. First, we are going to make a review of all the changes that are happening around us in the world, in the environment, that convert organizational resilience in a quality that it's highly demanded by many organizations today. In the second place, I will talk to you about the need for systemic thinking. We need to understand that the organizations where we work are complex systems, and when we approach the situations and the problems that arise in our organizations, we need to act as if those organizations are systems, are complex systems made of different parts that they are interdependent one of the other. Then I will enter in some tips or some ideas on how, from an HR organization, we can help our companies to become more resilient. And I will end with some ideas of what particularly HR professionals you can do to achieve that goal. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. As I said, what we are going to talk today is about resilience. Resilience is a quality that many HR professionals in many companies have been dealing with for a long time now. The difference is that traditionally, when HR paid attention to resilience, paid attention to this quality from an individual standpoint. I mean, HR tend to deal with resilience as a quality of individual people, as a kind of competence, as a kind of attribute people may have or may not have, and a quality that can be developed. So it's normal to find the concept of resilience in the dictionaries of competences many companies use, or even as a topic in developmental programs. The difference of my talk today is that I'm not going to focus my talk on individual resilience, but on organizational resilience, on an attribute of the organization, on an attribute of the company. And I like to start with one important consideration. And this consideration is that the resilience of an organization does not equal the addition of the resilience of the members of this organization, because there are other elements that they are also part of the organization that condition its resilience and are not related to the competencies of the individuals. I mean, organizations, as I said, organizations are systems, are complex systems, and there are many variables, many factors that condition the resilience of those systems. But first, let's think about why organizational resilience is becoming such an important topic for more and more organizations. The reason of this focus on organizational resilience is linked to the level of change the world is experiencing. Let's think about the world around us, the environment where our companies, our organizations, ourselves play, where we do our activities. If we analyze the different dimensions of the world, of the environments, we will realize how fast and how deep the world is changing around us. If we take a look at the natural environment, for instance, if we take a look at the changes, the climate, the natural world is experiences, we will see how deep are those changes in terms of temperature, climate, pollution, etc. If we take a look at technology, it's incredible the speed at which technological advances are developing around us. Some people say that we live in the era of the dense technologies, in the era of data, in the era of algorithms, in the era of networks, in the era of the cloud, and above all, in the era of exponential technologies, referring to the speed at which all those new technologies are pervading our world and our lives. If we take a look at the economic environment, we can also observe many changes. We live in a globalized world, but somehow we are seeing some signs or symptoms of deglobalization, in part derived by the isolationist politics of Mr. Trump in the past years, but also related to the increased sensitivity of consumers to the impact in the environment the global trade may have. We can also see in the economy the phenomenon of the big tech, how companies like Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook influences our lives. If we take a look at the social dimension of the environment, we can also see many changes. We see the demography changing, how we are, particularly in the Western world, we are getting older, and the impact the aging of population is having not only in our society, but also in our labor market and the reality we find within our organization. And we might also include in this analysis of the environment all the changes the political and the regulatory environment are experiencing. Somehow we can see, or we can say, that we are living in an era of disruption, in an era of unexpected changes that sometimes change the rules of the game for many companies, many organizations, and many individuals. Probably some of you are familiar with this idea that we are living in a VUCA world. This concept, VUCA, was taken by companies, by organizations from the military environment. This term, VUCA, was coined in the 1980s after the end of the Cold War by the School of War of the US Army to describe the reality of the new geopolitics once the Cold War was over. The V is for volatile. We live in a world that changes a lot and changes very deep and very fast. The U is for uncertain. We live in an uncertain world where it's difficult to anticipate where the next change is going to come from and with what intensity or with which direction. The C is for complex. We live in a complex world in a complex context. We live in a world of interdependencies between different elements, between different actors, where it's not very easy to identify what are the real causes of the situations and the problems we face. And the A is for ambiguous. We receive a lot of signals, but it's not always easy to understand or identify what is the real meaning of those signs we are receiving. Somehow we feel that if we were in a roller coaster, our world somehow has changed a lot, and sometimes we feel that we are upside down. And on top of that, last year, something else happened. The COVID pandemic that somehow accelerated some of those trends, and somehow they changed the directions of others. Many people say that now we are perceiving that those wars, Mike Tyson, the world champions of the boxing heavyweights, said once that everyone has a plan until it's hit on the mouth, has become a reality. We are in this kind of roller coaster. We are up, we are down. We are in a world where we've got the feeling sometimes that we are living in a chaotic environment. Maybe some of you are familiar with the theory of chaos. The theory of chaos was produced by an American mathematician and meteorologist, Edward Lorenz, in the 1960s. And it's famous because this metaphor of the butterfly effect. Lorenz used to say that if we have two worlds that they are exactly the same, except for which in one of those there's a butterfly flipping its wings, this tiny difference might determine that the future of the two worlds in the long run might be extremely different. And this is somehow what we are experiencing with the COVID crisis. We still don't know exactly where this virus came from, but it's incredible that such a tiny organism has caused such a big disruption in our world. This is the reason why some people say that when we say that we live in a VUCA world, we fall short. The world is VUCA, yes, but it's more than VUCA. There's one person who's called James Casher from the Institute for the Future that say that instead of saying that we live in a VUCA world, we should say that we live in a bunny world. And bunny is another acronym that stands for B for brittle. So we live in a context where we face a lot of situations, a lot of realities that we think they are solid, but in reality, they are not solid at all. They are just solid on the surface. It's like an ice cream in summer covered by chocolate, where all of a sudden we see a wrinkle, and when we realize we are trying to keep our hands clean from the cream that it's melting around, okay? So it's the reality. We got very similar. We are managing things that we feel they are solid, but in reality, they are not solid at all. It's also a world that generates a lot of anxiety. And we have evidence now about the impact, for instance, the COVID crisis has had not only on the physical health of people, but also in their mental health due to the stress, the anxiety, the impact of lockdowns in people. We are also living in a world that it's non-linear. And this is a very important difference, because normally when we approach the problems, we try to identify the causes of those problems to act on those causes. But we live in a world where it's not clear what are the real causes of the problems, of the consequences we observe. And then it's very difficult for us to act on those causes. And finally, it's a world that sometimes we feel is absolutely incomprehensible. So this is the context we face. And this is the context where more and more companies and more HR professionals make themselves these questions. How can we survive in such a bunny world? What we observe in the world, what we have observed in the past decades, it's something that is very related to this question. And it's an evolution in the management paradigms that they are prevalent in most organizations. We come from a century, the 20th century, where the dominant management paradigm was a paradigm of efficiency, of quality, etc. But with the turn of the century, we realized that the world was more volatile and more complex than we thought. With the boom of the internet, we start realizing the importance that companies are not only efficient and produce quality products, but they also need to be agile. And in the 2010s, we realized that on top of being agile, they need to become what is called an ambidextrous organizations that they are able to write with both hands, and with one hand managing efficiently the today business, exploiting the competitive advantage of today, and with the other hand trying to design, trying to draw the future of the organization. And now we are entering the 2020s, the new roaring 20s. And in this new decade, what we are realizing is that the predominant management paradigm in many organizations will be this we call organizational resilience. There are some authors, of course, that they go a step beyond and they talk about anti-fragile organizations. This is a term that was coined by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, a Lebanese author that is also the father of this concept of the black swans, the unexpected problems or situations a company face more and more frequently in this world where we live, no? And this idea of anti-fragile says that companies need to try to convert in companies that not only resist change, that not only are able to recover rapidly from adversity, that it would be the traditional meaning of resiliency, but benefit from that adversity. We need to try to explore ways, formulas to convert our organizations in high resilience, or in other words, anti-fragile organization. It's true that in this search for the resilient organization, international organizations such the British Standards Institutions or the International Organization of Standards have created norms to help companies to become more resilient. For instance, in the United Kingdom, the norm BS 65000 was issued in 2014, and at the international level, the norm ISO 22316 was issued in 2017. And those norms are there. There are more than norms, guidelines about what to do with organizations to ensure this quality that it's called resilience. But what we find when we have our discussions with the HR professionals that are our clients is that many of those professionals are not even aware of the existence of those norms, even if those norms are very well known by the people that in their companies take care of compliance or take care of quality. And for us, it's a pity, because at the end of the day, even if we say at the beginning that the resilience of organization is not the result of adding the resilience of their people, we firmly believe that at the end of the resilience of the organization is the people we have and what the people do and think. Those people are what, at the end of the day, can help the response of our organizations to these impacts, to those adversities, can be higher or can be lower. For us, in any case, what is important is that the organization and the people that work in the organization develop what we call system thinking. We need to understand that the organizations are complex systems, that they are open to their environment, that they are adapt to the changes happen in their environment. We need to understand that each organization is different. We cannot act as if all organizations were the same. Each organization is a complex system made of different elements that is integrated, is nested in a social context, and of course is nested in a planet, in the most complex system that is the planet. And in a complex scenario, and being organizations, complex systems, we need to learn, we need to develop the capacity of acting in a different way. In the school, in the university, we have been educated to manage complicated systems, complicated problems, but we are not being educated to manage the complexity of non-order situations, like many of the situations we face today. We have been trained to classify situations and apply to those situations some kind of standard solutions. We have been trained to make analysis, to understand, to identify and understand what are the causes of the symptoms and consequences, and then act upon those causes to offset those consequences. But what happens when we need to face situations where it's not that we know what we don't know, is that we don't know what we don't know. We need to manage situations where the relation between inputs and outputs are not clear. And those are the kind of situations where we cannot solve the problems through a deep, detailed analysis, but via experiments. We need to prove, we need to be what are the results of those proofs, and then to act in consequence. And many times, it's not even that the situations are complex. They are simply chaotic. We need to act, and then, depending on the results of our actions, then we need to be able to change the directions of our activity. This is more and more the situations we need to face from HR, and it's not easy. Because in these situations of high complexity and then of high uncertainty, it's very easy to get trapped by one phenomenon that more and more companies fail. That is the phenomenon of isomorphism, the tendency of companies to copy and paste the solutions that work in other companies. This is one of the risks of some benchmarking initiatives. We need to understand that our organizations are complex systems, and it's extremely difficult that one solution that produces certain results and one organization is going to produce the same results in our organization. But it's also human. In front of uncertainty, it's very human to look around for solutions and then pick the solution that it's working in a company that we consider that it's comparable to us, when at the end we are not the same system, and then the results may be very, very difficult. Having said this, I like to now make an overview of different dimensions of the organizations we need to work from HR, we need to help in HR to help our companies, our organizations to become resilient organizational systems. The first of all is around the definition of business strategies. What we need to understand related business strategy is that the keys of competitiveness of the companies have changed. Since the world now is much more complex than in the past, now the competitiveness of the companies doesn't depend anymore about the possession of assets or resources that they are difficult to copy from our competitors, but it depends on our ability to detect changes in the world, to seize these opportunities that we identify in the world, and then to be able to transform our organizations at the right pace. Somehow we are in an era where a strategy is more a vision than a plan, even if many executives still think that the key element of a strategy is the so-called strategic plan of the company. The more we extend the time horizon of a strategy, the more it needs to be a vision and the less it needs to be a plan, precisely because of the uncertainty of the environment. What we need to do in a company to remain competitive in such changing, in such turbulent environment is to have degrees of freedom to move strategically, to adapt to a changing world. There's a military saying that say that in case the map and the terrain doesn't correspond, just follow the terrain. And this is what many companies need to do, because we see hundreds of companies that stick to their plans, and this only to go into the disaster. That's why companies need more and more to leverage the capacity of all the people that form the organization, their capacity to read the environment and to identify those opportunities and those threats, and also to imagine right solutions and the right ways of going. And this is where HR professionals can help your organization to leverage this potential of your people to scan the environment and to identify opportunities and anticipate threats. This is about business strategy. The second dimension where I think HR professionals can help your companies to become more resilient is in the field of the work methods and tools you use. For instance, in the decisions about automation, about technology. The decisions about automations and about technology can increase or reduce the resilience of an organization. If you get trapped in a certain technology, this decision can reduce the resilience of your organization. On the contrary, if it makes you less dependent on certain professionals that they are very rare, they are difficult to find in the market, they may increase the resilience of your organization. They are not easy questions, but many times the HR professionals are absent from these discussions, and we think they should be there. Also related to work methods is the trend many companies have to adopt the so-called agile methodologies. So the way of organizing projects, of organizing flow work streams is not longer a linear way, a sequence of phases, but a sequence of cycles where the work is evolving and is adapting in parallel. It's being done around. Companies also need to find ways to leverage the collective intelligence of their people. People in organization have very, very good ideas, but many times we don't have systems, we don't have methods to make sure the brains of the people are used so we get the best of this collective thinking that it's possible. Or even related the remote work that has become very popular due to the COVID-19 crisis. Have we thought to what extent a remote work policy can contribute positively or negative to the resilience of our organization? Maybe it can reduce the resilience of an organization from the moment the people that are working from home can be less committed to the company as if they were all working together. But on the other hand, having access to people that do their work from any corner of the world can also provide flexibility, adaptability, and resilience to organization. The third dimension of the organization I like to mention is the organization's structure. We observe an evolution of organizational structures. More and more companies are designer, flatter organization, and also the language companies use to refer to the organization is less and less taken from the field of engineering and the field of mechanics, and more for the field of biology and the field of natural science. We are seeing less the structures of organizations as machines, and we are seeing them more as organisms, as natural organisms that they are in contact with their environment and they adapt to the changes that happen in their environment. One of the main trends we observe in the field of organizational structures is the trend to build the structures around self-managed units, like what happened in the agile methods with those models based on tribes and chapters, like the one is used in Spotify, or even more radical, the model that it's used in the appliance manufacturing in a Chinese appliance manufacturer called Haier, that they have split the company in an ecosystem of a small semi-independent companies that serve one to the other. We are also in a world where we can help our organizations to become more resilient if we help them to open their structures to their environment. Charles Handy, in the early 2000s, in his book, The Age of Unreasons, talked about the Shamrock organization. According to Charles Handy, organizations would be more adaptable if they are made by 4 types of collaborators: permanent employees, temporary employees, then an ecosystem of freelancers and micro-enterprise, very specialized, and then a 4th leaf of this shamrock that would be made of customers and clients who do the work by themselves. That is something that is happening in the world of the internet more and more. Related to this trend or openings are all the ideas of the open innovations. If we need to be innovative, we need to be open to ideas from outside. And then many companies now, they are leveraging platforms and idea markets where they can get the expertise from external scientists, from external engineers to feed the innovation funnel of the company. And there's something else that is important in regards the structures of the organization. And it's the idea that the structures of organizations, they are not just the organization charts of the companies. They are informal structures, informal relational structures that sometimes they are even more important than the formal structures of the companies. This is why more and more companies now, they are using methodologies that like the organizational network analysis, where they can see, they can visualize what are those relations and understand if there are some parts of the organization that they are not sufficiently connected with the rest of the organization, and then can be a risk if one of the nodes, one of the elements of the networks disappears at some time. We have talked about the strategy, we have talked about methods, we have talked about the structure. Then what about culture and values? Now we are entering in a typical topic for HR professional. Culture and values, the famous science iceberg, the shared beliefs and the shared behaviors of the people. Now we've got here a paradox. We want to develop strong company cultures, but we also need to keep a diversity of profiles, a diversity of thinking that can help the company to be creative and to respond from different perspectives to the problems they face. This is one of the debates I think HR professionals can contribute a lot to the organization, not to find the right balance between diversity and identity. And there's also another debate that is also related to company culture, that is this debate on how we can combine a high level of alignment and also a high level of autonomy. This is not easy. Normally, most of the companies, they are in scenarios where they combine a high level of alignment but a low level of autonomy. How we can combine both? Because the key is there. The key for resiliency is to have organizations that they are made of highly aligned and highly autonomous people at the same time. And the key for that is very simple, but not very easy. That is, treat our people as if they were adults and not as if they were children. That is something we still observe in many organizations. And what about the people? What about the base of the organization? What about the elements, the communities that companies are? At the end of the day, they are communities of people. Those people, what are the competencies they need in this new scenario? What are the competencies they need to increase the resilience of the organization? Yeah? We need, that is a huge need for reskilling people. It's not only because of automation, it's mostly because the need companies have to become more resilient. And to do that, of course, we need people with certain competencies, certain technical competencies, but we also need people with certain attitudes and particularly with a different way of thinking about the world and about the problems. And to get these competences, companies need to take a lot of decisions how to meet the supply and demand of those companies. Normally, we have two big alternatives, buy or make. We can go to the market and find the right people, or we can organize our internal training programs and convert our existing employees in employees with qualities we need. But it's not always easy. And finally, the the last element we need, or where we can contribute from HR to build more resilient organizations, is the leadership. In a recent study we made in Future for Work Institute, we detected how in the crisis, instead of evolving and increasing the leadership capability of the leaders of the organization, we are somehow going back in terms of leadership quality. When in reality, in disruptive organizations, what we need is a different, in disruptive scenario, we need a different profile of leaders. We need leaders that they are engaged, visionary, adaptable, humble. We need hyper-aware leaders that they are very, very aware of what's going on around them in the environment and in the organization. We need leaders that they make good use of data and the information that is available. It's more available than ever in the organizations to take the right decision. And above all, we need leaders that execute very fast, that execute rapidly. Somehow, we need leaders that they are professional jugglers, that they are able to combine all these paradoxes, they manage all those paradoxes, that they are adaptable, very adaptable, but at the same time, they are very authentic. Leaders that they are able to combine high levels of accountability with high levels of psychological safety. So people, instead of getting anxious in front of all those changes that are happening, they can enter this continuous learning mode that is needed more and more by the organization. And in this scenario, what else HR can do? Well, I like to finalize my presentation with this image. This image is taken from a survey Dave Ulrich, that's a famous expert in the HR field, has recently done. Here are the capacities HR professionals need to be successful in the current scenario. According to Ulrich, the most important competencies for HR professionals are to mobilize information, accelerate business, advance human capability, foster collaboration, and in the center of all, simplify complexity. However, the impact on the results of the business is not so much in the individual competencies of HR professionals, but in the ability of HR professionals to develop business capabilities in their organization and also to build strong, reliable, and credible HR departments. And this is my call for you. If you want to contribute your companies, to contribute to the resilience of your company, first of all, you need to build resilient HR organizations that help your companies to achieve this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Santi. It was, your presentation was very interesting and, open, I would say the window, but I must say a lot of different windows on the transformation that, we face and on the challenges that we have in front of us now and in the next months. Because when you speak of organizational resilience and the continuous change, of course, we must consider the pandemic situation we are living and we will live in the next months, because it's pretty clear to everyone that unfortunately we are not at the end of this situation and we must navigate the uncertainty. And so the concept of BA and I word is fundamental to understand, the uncertainty and to understand how to navigate it every day. The point that I want just underline and discuss with you is about the transformation that we need inside the HR department, and you spoke of in the last part of your presentation. So from your point of view, from your observatory, what do you see that is missing to the HRs to do the transformation of their departments before of doing the transformation of the entire company?
Well, we think that one of the key roles of HR departments or HR professionals to contribute to their companies in this, let's say, turbulent environment we are seeing is helping the organizations and the members of the organization to gain awareness of all the changes that are happening around them and the impact those changes are having in the business and also in the future of the organization. And to do so, to be able to do so, HR professionals, first, they need to be aware of what's going around them. What we see many times is that the HR departments in many companies, they are sometimes, and it's natural, but sometimes they are too focused inside the organization. They are not looking outside. Maybe they are looking outside when they try to find candidates for recruiting processes, or to determine what is the right salary level for a professional. But it's important to go beyond that. It's important to understand what are the macro trends that they are happening around them and how these macro trends condition the future of business models. They condition the future of the labor market. They condition the sensitiveness of the society where the organization is placed. So for me, the first step is to open to the world, because then HR can help the organization to make sense of all those changes and can help the managers to develop also this responsibility.
While I was listening to you, it was totally clear to me the importance of studying the complexity and doing analysis, researches, and understanding the trends, and also then to share these studies and these researches within the HR department and within the entire organization. And so two words that come up from your last points for me are transparency and continuous communication. Yes. We must over-communicate somehow because people need to know that the organization is working on its future and is discussing its future and is studying how the future can be shaped. And we must involve then people in these discussions. So, over-communicating, being transparent, and then organizing a continuous feedback sessions, continuous listening sessions to understand what are the needs, what are the wills, what are the forces of the people within the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's key. HR professionals in organizations also foster collaboration between people, not to avoid these silos we find in some companies that they are a real problem for organizational resilience. It's also, and I think it's also a good contribution from HR departments, is to help the people in the organization to navigate in the paradoxes that they find in these difficult circumstances, and also to develop a critical thinking. I think it's very important to challenge the status quo and not to say, okay, in this company, this has taken us to success. Yes, it may be possible, and we need to respect that. But maybe those are not the keys for the future success of the company, because the circumstances may be totally different. And if we apply the same recipes, we might be running a risk that can be a really big risk.
And the point for me, Santi, to underline and reinforce the concept that you shared with us, is that this critical thinking and this collaboration, first of all, must come from the HR professionals.
Yes.
Because sometimes as HR, we think that we must just concentrate on practical things, and we do not understand that if we don't upgrade, update, and change our skills, if we don't change our mindset, then it's like impossible to drive the changes that the organizations need today. And so this is a very important thing. I'm pretty sure that all the HRs that are part of a Radical HR Club and so took the decisions to upgrade their competencies and to discuss their future are on this way. But I want to reinforce this concept because it's fundamental right now. And if we want to change our companies, we must change first our function and our way of being HR. So this is very important. I thank you very much. I say thank you very much to you, Santi, for all the things that you share with us, and being very practical and very precise in underlying concepts like this, and this come from the researches that you do and from all the organizations that you observe with the Future for Work Institute. So it's very, very valuable for us. So thank you again for your presentation, Santi. I'm sure we will have other webinars and occasions to have you in Radical HR Club. And I thank you. I say thank you, and I say thank you to all the people that participated to this webinar live, and all the people that then will watch this webinar also on demand in the platform. And I think we can say good lunch at this time. And I hope to see you soon. And for all the questions that you have, guys, just put the question in the platform, and we will ask also to Santiago Garcia to give answers to all the things that will come up later. Thank you, Santi, and thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Thank you.